Welcome to this Tutor to You revision video that looks at small-scale ecosystems such as freshwater ponds and deciduous woodlands. This is part of Paper 1, Unit B, The Living World. We're going to start off by looking at the freshwater pond ecosystem. A freshwater pond ecosystem is made up of a number of smaller habitats. For example, at the centre of the pond there are fish where the water is deep, and at the edges in the shallow water there will be lots of plants, and on the surface there will be small insects and wildfowl. Around the edges, reeds will grow in the water and grasses, and bushes and trees will grow on the banks. The pond ecosystem is dependent on oxygen and light, and the levels of those affect the wildlife found there. At the bottom of the pond, there is little light or oxygen, but rotting plants provide shelter, so decomposers and scavengers live there. In the middle depths, fish breathe through their gills and are the main predators. Animals rise to the surface to find food. And on the pond surface, there is plenty of oxygen, light, and food, and animals either breathe through their gills, lungs, or skin. Above the pond surface, birds and animals breathe oxygen and they find food either on the water surface or the edges of a pond. Let's move on to the deciduous woodland ecosystem. Deciduous woodlands are high in biodiversity with thousands of species, including native tree species such as oak and ash, shrubs such as holly and hazel, ferns and brackens, brambles, and hundreds of species of moss and lichens. There are also many species of animals, birds, insects, and also fungi. All the species in the deciduous woodland are interdependent. The trees have broad leaves which maximise photosynthesis during the day, and they lose their leaves in the winter in order to conserve their energy. During autumn, the forest floor gets covered in a thick layer of leaf litter, which is usually disappeared by spring due to decomposition, returning nutrients from the leaf litter back into the soil, which are then taken up by plant roots and used for growth. Okay, so let's have a think about how weather and climate affect small-scale ecosystems. The characteristics of the ecosystem itself are dependent on a number of factors such as soil and climate, and the vegetation is dependent on the weather and climate conditions. For example, trees in deciduous woodlands lose their leaves in winter when there is less sunlight for photosynthesis in order to conserve their energy. And areas further north or at higher altitudes tend to have coniferous woodlands where trees have needles instead of leaves, which can withstand the cold and wind much more than deciduous trees would be able to. And of course, extreme weather events can have huge impacts on small-scale ecosystems. Events such as heat waves and droughts can cause devastation to these areas. For example, ponds may dry out completely, but forests can also be damaged by storm events such as the Great Storm of 1987, which wiped out 15 million trees across England. Flood events can also lead to waterways being contaminated by raw sewage, which damages marine habitats. So finally, let's have a look at how humans can affect small-scale ecosystems. Woodlands may be deforested to make way for housing developments, road construction, or to use as timber products, which affects habitats, food chains, and the nutrient cycle. But farming can also affect small-scale ecosystems in a number of ways. Firstly, water may be taken from ponds for irrigation, which could lead to a depletion of water, killing aquatic plants, fish, and other marine life. Secondly, chemical fertilisers can cause eutrophication, which causes algae to grow rapidly and starves waterways of oxygen, which then kills fish. And lastly, hedgerows are often removed to increase field size to make farming much more profitable. This destroys habitats and it can alter the balance of food webs. That concludes this Tutor to You revision video focusing on small-scale ecosystems. Thank you for watching.